Okay? So in other words, a nonprofit that has figured out some way to produce revenues to support its own activities. It is, as Kent and I know, it is perfectly legal to earn revenues as a nonprofit. There is no reason to be a for-profit. It becomes illegal when the revenues that you're producing has nothing to do with your program. Not illegal, but taxable. And there's nothing to do with your program. So in other words, if your program is autistic children, and what you want to do is open up a salad bar, there's a good chance that that's going to be called unrelated business income, and there is a very high tax penalty. So I'll tell you quick, there's a story about that. How many of you remember or have seen the Metropolitan Museum of Art stores in all the malls when they were selling the scarves and everything? So the IRS came to them and said, that's not legal. You can't be a nonprofit and have a gift shop in the mall. I mean, it's one thing in your museum, but not in the mall. It has to have something to do with your program. So rather than shutting them down, what they did is every time you went and bought a scarf, there was a little hang tag on the scarf that told you that this was an Aztec piece of art and described what it was, and that scarf now became an educational item. Why not? So the question is, what business do you have being in business? What makes any of you believe that you are better business people than business people? What makes you think that you can compete in any way, shape, or form with somebody who is ruled by a pure profit motive? And when you answer that question, then you can think about opening a business. And not only that, but why should you do anything that is outside of your pure mission? So, meaning, if you are a nonprofit doing work in after-school programs, what makes you believe that you can open up a coffee shop and compete with the private sector coffee shop down the block? Why? Well, first of all, you're running an after-school program. I mean, that's what you do. That's what your expertise is. Your expertise is not running a coffee shop. Now, I'm going to flip that upside down. So, first of all, odds are the coffee shop down the block where the people get up every morning and all they think about is coffee, and the way they pay their mortgage and their children's tuition is by selling coffee, is going to kick your ass. Just will. I was looking to open up years ago. I got funding to open up a $5 million laundry facility in the valley to focus on high-end hotels. We had to deal with the high-end hotels. And one of my board members, who owned a very large real estate company, who sold the company at the right time, said to me, he said, Adley, here's the deal. You get a phone call. You own your own laundry facility. This is how you pay the rent. This is how everything. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and Lowe's calls you and says, where the hell are my towels? Now, if you own your own business, what you do is you jump in the car in your pajamas, find out where those towels are, meet the guy on the side of the road whose truck broke down, pull out, fold the towels yourself, throw them in the trunk, and by 4:30 in the morning, they're delivered. Now, I ran a $4.5 million business doing street cleaning, and I can tell you that at 3 o'clock in the morning, the Lowe's Hotel called my guys and said, where the hell are our towels? My guy would get on the phone to call the other guy, and they would spend 45 minutes trying to track him down. And they would call somebody else who would go down and relieve him and bring another truck. Then they would get there at about 9:30 in the morning, and by 10 o'clock in the morning, the Lowe's Hotel would have fired us. Because I ran a homeless agency. Nobody was paying their rent based upon whether or not those towels were delivered. Now, I'm going to switch this around so it doesn't sound like such a bummer. If your program itself can integrate into a business that can make your program partially, not completely, I've never seen completely yet, self-supporting, then that's great. And it works best in a job program. It works best in a job program because your mission, your program, is to get people jobs. It works really well in programs where you're trying to do job training for people who are somewhat challenged. It works fantastic. And the reason is because your business is the business of helping people get to work. So if you can create a business that helps people get to work, it integrates perfectly into what you're doing. At the same time, don't expect to make a profit. There are no examples out there. I've been teaching this for 6 years, run one for 7 years. There are no examples of these that actually earn a profit. And the reason is very simple, because there is a constant trade-off between profit and program. A constant, every decision you make, trade-off between program and profit. I'll give you an example. And just explain this in pure business terms. If I run a service business, right, my job is to do certain things. Here's what I do. I go to the best labor pool in the country that I can find. I hire the best of the best, and I train them and keep them as long as humanly possible. I am now a nonprofit opening up a job training program. I go to one of the most challenged pools of talent in the country, which is why they're my clients. I'm not saying anything bad, they're my clients, right? I train them. I pick, of that group, I typically pick the people who are not employable on the outside. Therefore, they have to work for me. And once I train them, I do my best to have them now trained, move into another job in the private sector so that I can put another person who needs this training into the job. So how do I compete with the private sector when I'm doing that? So I run this, for years I ran this large street cleaning business. We had 1,000 people over the course of a year working. We had 275, 300 people a day on the street sweeping. We have a really good guy named Joe who showed up every single day. He was great. The business owners loved Joe. Joe showed up every day. Joe swept in front of their building. Joe smiled. Joe offered their people in the community directions, showed them in. The client loved Joe. It was time for me to fire Joe because Joe didn't need my job training job anymore. Joe is now capable of getting a job on his own, socially. He had a resume, knew how to show up at work. He was a great employee. He smiled. He was fantastic. It was time for me to fire Joe. Customer hated that I was going to fire Joe. But if I kept Joe, which was better for my business, customer was happy, and I didn't have to retrain another worker, right? But if I kept Joe, we turned those jobs over 3 times a year. Over 2 years, 5 people would not have had a job training program, right? Because I kept one guy, and then there would be another woman, and then there would be somebody else. So here I am, getting rid of my best people.